Assalamualaikum. Today we're going to cover the nervous system. So as we know, the nervous system can be divided into two parts. The first one will be the CNS, the central nervous system, and the second one is the peripheral nervous system. So today we are going to cover both of these two type of nervous system. Okay. So what we should know first is actually both of the system work interdependently. So that's mean for the central nervous system to work, it need the peripheral nervous system, and for the peripheral nervous system to work, it need the central nervous system. Okay, first we go to the central nervous system, or known as the CNS. So as you can see from the diagram here, the central nervous system is made by the brain, okay, and also by the spinal cord. So the brain is otak and the spinal cord is the saraf tunjang. So both of these organs made the central nervous system. Okay, you need to memorize this because in IGCSE exam they also would like to ask you about what are the organs that made up the central nervous system. Okay, and also the nervous system is made by neuron, which is a specialized cell, a very special cell that function is to transmit impulse, which is the electrical information. Okay, specialized cell here mean like a cell that do some particular function. For example, the red blood cell is one of the specialized cell because it only transport CO2 and also oxygen. Okay, so that's it. The central nervous system is made by brain, spinal cord, and the neuron that is made in is the relay neuron. And then we go to the peripheral nervous system. Okay, as you can see the blue one here, the peripheral nervous system is actually the nerves that is branching from the brain and also from the spinal cord. Okay, so as we look closely in this diagram, we see there is a lot of branching, something like that. And this branching, if you see closely here, it's actually coming from the spinal cord and also from the brain itself. So just imagine that the brain and the spinal cord is the stem of a tree, and from the stem of a tree, the tree will have branches. So the peripheral nervous system is the branches. Okay, so peripheral nervous system is made by cranial nerves and also the spinal nerve. Cranial nerve meaning the nerve that is coming from the brain. Okay, so we only can find these cranial nerves only at our head. Okay, and then the spinal nerve is the nerves that is branching from the spinal cord. So as you can see, all the nerves in our hand, in our leg is coming from the spinal cord. So because it coming from the spinal cord, we call it as the spinal nerves. Okay, so the neuron that made the peripheral nervous system is known as the sensory neuron and motor neuron. After this, we are going to cover what is this relay, sensory, and motor neuron. Okay, let's go to the function of both of the part of the system. Okay, first the central nervous system, as the name suggested. Central mean it is very centered. It's like a command center, and it is very important. So that is why our brain and our spinal cord is very important, and that's why also is protected by bones. Like our brain is protected by our skull, and our spinal cord is protected by our backbone. Why? Because it is very important. If something bad happened to our spinal cord, then maybe we can get disease or disorder like paralysis, lumpuh, so on and so forth. So the function of the central nervous system is it will receive the information in the form of impulse from the PNS. So that's why before this I mentioned that the PNS is very important, is very related. Okay, PNS and CNS are very related to each other. So the CNS will receive the information from the PNS, and what the CNS do once they receive the information, once they receive the impulse, is they will integrate the information, they will analyze the information, they will make a decision, okay, about how to respond towards something, and they also coordinate the body. Okay, for example, like if you touch a very hot object, so your brain will tell your hand to withdraw from the hot object so that your hand will not be burned. Okay, so after the CNS receive the information from the PNS, they will do this kind of things, and then after they make some information, they will produce new information, and again they will send to the PNS. So you see, so the information is coming from the PNS and then arrive at the CNS to be integrated, and then it will send back to the PNS because the PNS is connected to the effector, which is the muscle and the gland. Okay, next we go to the peripheral nervous system, the branching one. We have two, right? We have this cranial nerves and also the spinal nerve. So what the peripheral nervous system do is it dia menyambungkan, connect the CNS to other part of the body, such as the sense organ, the muscle and gland. The muscle and gland is known as the effector, meaning that organ is responsible to produce action. Okay, meaning when we withdraw our hand from the hot object, our bicep will contract. You see, the bicep there is the effector. The sense organs is the organ that can sense the stimulus. What is stimulus? Stimulus is the change that occur in the environment. Okay, and not all in our body can detect the stimulus, only specific organ, and that specific organ is known as sense organ. We have 5 senses in our body, so the organ that can sense the 5 senses we known as the sense organ. For example, like our eyes, our nose, our tongue, okay, so on and so forth. So what the sense organ do is it will produce information. One, the sense organ detect, oh, there is impulse, there is stimulus. So after the sense organ detect the stimulus, it will produce information in the form of impulse. So what's next? The information, the impulse, will be sent to the central nervous system. So the impulse will be integrated, and then a new impulse will be created by the CNS and then sent to the target organ, which is the muscle and also the gland. For what the impulse is sent there? To do the proper action, to do the proper response. Okay, so in the case of a man that suffer from paralyzed, he cannot move his arm, for example. Why? Because maybe the PNS has been damaged, so the impulse never receive at that target organ, so he cannot make proper action.